Hi, Gibaud, Gibaud.com, and today I would like to speak about something that I hear more and more. People telling they use manual mode with automatic ISO. Well, this is not manual mode anyway, but this is not the subject. Let's speak about automatic ISO. My opinion, I don't like them, I don't want to use them, I think it's a big mistake to use them. But still, some people want to use them, so I will tell a few tips on how to get the best result if you want to use automatic ISO. So let's start. First, let's speak about a bit of history. When we used to have film cameras, well, still use, if you had a film like this one is 100 ISO, ASA before, well, you would keep the same ISO during the full roll of film, your 36 pictures in this situation, and you could not change it. So when digital photography appeared, that was fantastic because you can change the ISO between each picture. So this is great because according to the situation, it's not like before you need to have two cameras with different roll of films or take out the roll of film before finishing it. Well, that could be a bit of a problem, okay? Or in medium format, like Hasselblad, you could change the pack, have different films. It was more complicated. Now you can change your ISO as you wish, okay? And lately in other mode than automatic, you can have the ISO in automatic system. It means automatically the ISO will change. So fully automatic, what it is? Automatic aperture, automatic shutter speed, automatic ISO. If you look at aperture priority, you set the aperture and then the speed will be automatic and the ISO will be fixed. If you put speed priority, you will set your shutter speed, then you have the aperture on automatic and then the ISO that will be fixed. And then you have manual mode and everything is set as fixed. Aperture, shutter speed and also ISO. People who say I'm using manual mode with automatic ISO, this is not manual mode. This is semi-automatic where you set a fixed aperture and a fixed shutter speed, but this is not manual. This is semi-automatic. There's no bad solution. When you look at a picture, you don't know if it was automatic, semi-automatic or whatever. So it's irrelevant, but it's just to use the proper wording. Now you can have automatic ISO that on any of these position of your small wheel. Okay, so we're going to have a look at that. Since the start of photography, the ISO was the joker, the thing you use when you cannot do anything else. What is that? I mean, if I cannot change my aperture anymore, can't change my speed, all this, I change the ISO. But this is the last thing you should change. Okay, why? This is a parameter that is going to affect most the image quality. In what way? The more you put your ISO high, the more noise you're going to have. Not always, we'll see that. And also you lose dynamic range. It means the higher you put the ISO, the narrower the dynamic range. So if your situation is you have really white cloud and really dark part in your picture, if you have the lowest ISO, maybe you can expose properly both. But if you're at really high ISO, you will have to decide if you save the highlights or save the shadows, but it will be really hard to have both, okay? The noise. We always say that the higher the ISO, the more noise you have. But the reason number one for noise is not the ISO, is the underexposure. What? It means that if you're underexposed, because you don't want to put the ISO higher, you will be on your computer after and try to pull up the light, the exposure, and you will have noise entering the shadows. So it's better to put up the ISO, have a proper exposure, and then not have to retouch shadows in post-production. So in this way, that's why telling noise comes with a high ISO, not always. Dynamic range, yes, is affected, but the noise, it also depends a lot on the way you expose. And it depends on the cameras. Before it was always like this. Nowadays we can see on my Fujifilm GFX S2, GFX 100 S2, I can pull up the shadows and have no noise. So it's not just the theory. In practice, it depends on the camera. But still, most cameras, if you try to lift the exposure in post-production, you will have noise entering the shadows. So it's better to proper expose or slightly overexpose to the right, as people say, and to have less noise this way, and if you need to put up the ISO, it will be better than underexposing. But this is this. People who tell they manually expose with automatic ISO, that's not true. That's not the way it works. From the second any of these setting, aperture, shutter speed, or ISO is in automatic, this is not manual mode anymore. It is semi-automatic or automatic if all of them are on automatic. So let's look at the pros of automatic ISO and the cons. And by the way, if you wanted to help me, don't forget I've got affiliated links in the description. Please use them, that really helps me. And if you wanted to buy Luminar Neo or Aperty by Skylum, you get a 10% discount with my code ERIC10. 10% on top of any offer they have. You see a great offer, still place my code, it's even cheaper for you. And with ERIC20 on K&F website, where you can find photography accessories like filters, bags, tripods, all what K&F Concept has there, and more brand they have there, you get 20% discount with my code ERIC20. Thank you so much, that really helps me. Let's carry on. First, the pros. Well, it means I can lock my depth of field because I fixed aperture and depth of field is fixed. I can look if I want to freeze the action or not, if my subject is moving or not, because I set the shutter speed, or I can also avoid to have shaking due to myself if I move, okay, photographer movement, because I put a minimum speed, so it's fixed and still have the proper exposure. Why? Because the ISO will adapt itself depending on the situation. If I don't have enough light with this aperture and this shutter speed, automatically it will adapt itself without me having to think about it. So that's really practical for someone who doesn't know too much about exposure or doesn't want to be bothered touching the ISO according to the situation. If he wants to lock the all other two parameters, that's really practical. So that's the big advantage of why people use automatic ISO. But there are many cons, many. First, the image quality is changing, because if I make like reportage, let's say I'm doing a wedding reportage, I'm in the church and I've got the bride and groom that are close to me and they are probably lit. I've got, I make my picture, that's fine. I'm on automatic ISO, no? And then I decide to point at the guests that are in the back, in a darker area. Automatically my ISO will bump up and the image quality will be different. I will have more noise, likely to have more noise on them than on the bride and the groom. So the image quality is changing. Also the dynamic range will be affected. Maybe there's a small window there that will be completely burnt, overexposed, and if I didn't touch the ISO, maybe the dynamic range would have coped with it, would have been fine. So it will affect the image quality. It can also affect time in post-production. Why? Because if I want to deliver my picture to my clients, I cannot give a pizza when I point at the guest and a nice picture when I point at the groom and the bride. That's a problem. So I will have to spend time removing noise, adjusting things, all this. That's a lot of time. So some people will say, yeah, but Eric, it's the same thing. If you point at the guest and you change your ISO manually, you will still have the same results. Yes, but in that case, I decide, not the camera decide. And maybe I've got enough margin to say, no, I don't touch the ISO. What I do, I can still drop my speed without having movement. I still have margin, so I drop my speed. Maybe I can still open my aperture and I expose properly the guests and I didn't touch the ISO, so the image quality is the same. But I decide. It's not the camera that decides what to do when the camera wants. I decide to adapt myself, or maybe decide on something halfway. Put up the ISO maybe just one stop, not 3 or 4 stops, just one stop. Open more the aperture and drop speed. But I decide. So the difference is really important, because in that case I can save a lot of post-production time, because I decide. Something else, when you're in automatic, or when you're in semi-automatic, let's forget about automatic, semi-automatic, whether it is aperture priority, speed priority, or ISO automatic, the way I measure light is so important. If I point at my shirt here, I will not get the same result as if I point at my shirt here, or my face, or my beard, okay? If I use my camera, I've set the manual, I think I'm in manual mode. Actually, I'm not in manual mode. I've set the aperture, I've set the speed, and I've got the automatic ISO. Depending on when I point the camera, the result will be different. So you need to be really precise when you're going to measure light, because yes, the result will be different. So people end up making big mistake because they change the compensation all the time. First picture, they point at my shirt and my face comes out overexposed. So, oh, that's wrong. So they change the compensation. But following picture, instead of pointing at my shirt, they point at my shirt here, this clearer shirt. And then the picture is underexposed. So they don't understand anything what's going on, because they don't realize that the light that comes on me is always the same in this situation, not changing all the time. So it means you have to be really precise when you're going to make picture in a wedding. You have to point always at the dress of the bride, because if it's white, you need to save this. That is always fine. But in the action, it's hard to be pointing all the time. So it complicates the situation a lot. So this is why I don't like automatic ISO. I think they make you think it's easier. They make you think it helps, but most of the time they make a lot of mistake. But don't forget one thing, a camera that makes a mistake is always not as bad as if a human makes a mistake, okay? Anyway, but still, you want to use automatic ISO, so I'm going to give you a few tips so it gets better for you. First, you need to know your camera perfectly. You need to know when the image quality is so bad that it's not usable anymore. And it depends on your camera. So this is where you're going to be able to fix the range of automatic ISO. If you see that your picture is still okay at 6400 ISO, then you could put a range from 100 to 6400. But if you leave it go up to 25,000 ISO, then it will be a disaster. Some picture will be fine, another will look like a pizza because you will have too much noise. If the maximum ISO you can use to get acceptable quality is 3200, then you fix from 100 to 3200. But sometimes I even recommend to narrow this. Instead of starting at 100, start at 400. 400 to 1600 or 400 to 3200. This way the difference between the two extremes will not be as so different in the result, okay? You will not have the perfect no noise picture and the one with a lot. It will be all a bit noisy, it will be your style, all this, or in post-production if you use a noise removal tool, that will be really, will give you a really similar result. So that's important. Give limit to the automatic range on your automatic ISO. Then you must learn how to measure light always the same way. Use spot metering. And if you do portrait, always measure on the face, or wedding, always on the dress, or street photography, you decide if you always measure on the walls of the houses, on the streets, or on your subject, on their face, whatever, but do always the same. This way you will get similar results and the ISO will not go crazy, okay? But still, I think what's important is to understand what a tool is for. Automatic ISO can be great, the same as automatic speed, automatic aperture, but use this automatism only when you are not in a stable situation of light. If you make picture light, right now to me, you make a portrait, incident light is always the same, but reflected light, this is what your camera is actually measuring, is always different. If you point here, if you point here, if you point there, it's different. There, here, always different. So it means the result will be always different. If you have automatism, you're going to go crazy. So in a stable situation of light, always go manual, fully manual. You set your aperture, you set your speed, and you set your ISO. Because this way, once the exposure is right, obviously if the exposure is not right, the whole series will be wrong, okay? But if the exposure is right, I can be like this, like this, like this, like this, doesn't matter. The light that comes on me is the same, and your result, all your picture will be exposed the same way. As your camera doesn't have incident light metering, only reflected light, the best tool for that is to use a light meter to measure what amount of light is falling on me, regardless of whether it's here or here or here or here. okay? Because all the same light, okay? So if you're in a stable situation, go manual. Don't use any automatism. If you are in an unstable situation, yes, sometimes it's practical. Personally, I don't like automatic ISO. If I'm going to be in semi-automatic, I prefer to decide whether I need to have the speed that is right or the aperture that is fixed, okay? If for me the depth of field is the important matter, I will have it fixed, and then I will have the speed in automatic, and I will fix the ISO, making sure that if the speed cannot drop too much and have it blurred, okay? But this is the way I would work. I work. If I am in a situation where the speed is the important, because maybe it's action photography, then I would set the aperture, then I would set the speed, shutter speed, and have an automatic aperture and fix the ISO in the way that the lens can cope with this, because physically the lens cannot close more than its physical maximum, nor it can open more than it's possible physically, okay? But play this way. But really, in action photography, in many situations, it's still better to be in manual mode. Let's say I'm doing pictures of boxing combat, and people will say, yeah, but light is changing. No, light is not changing. The ring is most of the time lit the same way. What is changing? Where I point to? If I point at the pair of shorts, or the hair, or the gloves, or a light behind, or the public that is behind that looks darker, I'm going to go crazy. It's a lot better to know how much light is falling on the subject and expose for him in manual mode, okay? But still, if you want to use automatic ISO, you can, but take care with it. They are a big source of mistake. One thing, this video is about photography. When we speak about videography, the story is different. Why? Because maybe I want to do a panning like this. Here I've got a lot of light, here I've got not much light. I don't want to use an ND filter to adapt myself while I'm moving, because it's hard for me to go at the right pace. I cannot do it. Obviously, in this situation, automatic ISO are welcome, because the exposure will adapt itself perfectly, okay? So this is why this video is about photography, not about video, okay? For video, and I think this is actually why they created automatic ISO, more for video than photography, okay? But this video is about photography. So I hope this helps you see why I'm not convinced about automatic ISO. And I don't say you cannot use it. Everyone does what he wants, what she wants, and I'll give you these few tips to make sure the results are better and more controlled. So thank you so much for watching the video. If you feel it may interest other people, please share it on social networks. If you have not done it yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, the small button down here and the small bell. If you click on the bell, we'll get notified when I upload a new video. My website, Gibaud.com. If you have any question, can leave a comment below. Also leave you affiliated links in the description. Please use them, that really helps me. And if you wanted to buy Luminar Neo or Aperty, don't forget you have 10% discount with my code ERIC10. It's on top of any offer they have. You still place your code, it's even cheaper for you. And with ERIC20 on K&F website, where you can find a lot of photography accessories, tripod, filters, bags, all this, like the one of K&F Concept, you get a 20% discount. So please use it. That helps me and that helps you too. Thank you so much. Also leave you my PayPal account in case you wanted to make a donation. Thank you very much. Please take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.